Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the HR Leaders Podcast, the show where we explore the future of work with industry experts and HR executives in the world's leading global brands. Today, I'm joined by Kenneth Renneberg, who's the head of recruitment, data, and systems for Northern Europe at Specsavers. Welcome to the show, Kenneth. How are you?
Thank you. I'm fine. How are you?
Not too bad. Not too bad. Where are you joining us from today?
I'm joining you from a small town in Denmark called Ballerup. It's just 15, 16 kilometers outside of Copenhagen. Working from home in these Corona times, as probably a lot of your listeners are doing as well, I hope.
Yeah, working out in the man cave?
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it's well, I'm lucky enough to have my own office in the house, so you can close the door and be quiet and stuff like that. But it's different than a year ago, right? For everybody, used to do a lot of traveling. Now it's only down to the grocery store, and that's about it. Apparently,
you're probably looking forward to that trip to the grocery store every day. Can't wait to get out.
Yeah, that's the top of the day. That's for sure.
Well, at least you won the battle with the office. I lost the battle to my wife about who's getting the office at home a long time ago. I was like, okay, I'm not going to win this battle. I might as well. Luckily, my office is actually about 5 minutes from my house. Oh, okay. So I was very lucky. And, because I'm here, I can come in here on my own. It was, safe to do so. So I was, we were pretty lucky from that perspective. But I knew early on, I was like, okay, the wife's getting the office at home. I'm not going to win that battle. Before we jump in, kind of tell everyone a little bit more about yourself and sort of your background and journey to where we are today at Specsavers.
Yeah, maybe that also explains why I won a little bit the office battle war, because I've worked in recruitment, or worked with recruitment since 1966. 1996. Sorry,
I was about to say.
Yeah, you never know. But started out actually working in Shell, and started with recruitment there, and then moved into the agency world. Started an agency. Actually, at some point, opened up my own agency I had for 7 years before I sold it, and then I moved into the RPO business, the recruitment process outsourcing industry, and worked there for quite some years, and then I joined Specsavers in 2013. So I've been here about 7 years now, actually. And actually, I thought about it when preparing a little bit for this. I haven't had a Danish leader since 2006, and I haven't actually been having an office I could go to normally necessarily since 2012. So I think that's why I won the battle war. At point I actually had 2 years where my main office was in Germany. So I was not there every day, as you can imagine.
Mm-hmm. What was it that made you mentioned starting up your own? You've always been in the recruitment game, whether it's your own business or working in an organization? What is it that made you the decision to sell the business and go back into working for an organization? As an entrepreneur, I'd love to understand more about the thought process. Yeah.
Well, two things. First, I actually in 2004 we actually got twins, so got twin boys, and they were born too early, 10 weeks too early. And I was actually in a point where I either needed to expand or find someone to work with at some point. And then, sometimes when you wish for things, they just happen. So what happened was actually I was approached by two bigger companies to start working together. And I joined one of the companies, a Danish recruitment company that actually primarily was in the temp business and normal recruitment. And we built an executive search on top of that. And I was a leader there for a little bit over 3.5 years before I thought it was time to leave and try something different. And I was actually working on a concept myself of rent a headhunter. But then I was approached by Alexander Mann's solution. And they asked me to come and hear about a situation they had where they had a client that was not so happy about the management that Alexander Mann had there. And after having some conversations with Alexander Mann and also the client, I decided to join them because I thought it was right up what I was actually thinking, just in a way bigger scale than I ever imagined. So that's how I started in the RPO industry.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting because you just going back to your point about the kids, the situations change, right? As well, given with family. I was thinking when I was speaking to my wife a few weeks back, and I said, I don't know if I would have started the business if we already had Robin, our daughter, because I just don't know, because I didn't realize what I was getting myself into, I think if I wouldn't have started it before we had Robin, I may not have ever took the leap. I'll be honest.
Yeah, but if anybody told you what you were about to start up and all the struggles you were going through, I'm probably sure you would have thought about it twice. That's how I felt.
100%. It's not for the faint-hearted, and that's one of the reasons why, even though it was one of the toughest times going through this current crisis, especially as a predominantly events company in terms of our revenue. We had already been through a lot of, we've already got our battle wounds and scars. So it's like, it's just another hurdle. It's just another hurdle we need to overcome. Yes, it's going to be difficult, but this is what we just to show what we're made of. So yeah. But I don't know how I can barely deal with one. So twins, I don't know how you did it, because I can barely manage one at the moment.
I recall a lot of nights falling asleep in a sofa with one of the kids in my arm and a bottle in the other. And
Well, you got two. How are you doing both?
Well, we took one each. That was kind of the deal here.
Yeah, nice. But tell me about your current journey with the team. Obviously, you've been going through a big, from a technology transformation piece. You're still on the journey. It never ends. Let's be honest. As well, tell me more about why, when you came into the business, what was the main reason they brought you in? What was the main focus, and then sort of the journey to where we are today? What were the sort of challenges that the business was looking for you to solve?
Well, I think when we started up in 2013, we were quite a different company. It changes all the time. We are a very agile company in that way, but facing that we are dealing with 5 different markets. Denmark, Finland, Norway, Sweden, and the Netherlands is a little bit of a struggle, because obviously you got 6 languages. I know you're gonna think 5 countries, 6 languages, but we also have English, of course, mixed into this thing. And although that most of the countries are very close to each other, at least if you travel, very, very different ways of working, very different, atmosphere and stuff like that. And I think one of the challenges you have as a global company is trying to embrace all of that. So I think that some of the first conversations I had with the leadership team was around, how will you make sure and ensure we can do best practice and stuff like that in a company where the diversity in that way is so big, and then obviously also because as I don't know if everybody knows Specsavers, but Specsavers is a family-owned company, and we are the biggest optical chain, family-owned chain in the world. We are in 10 countries, but also, the struggle is for talent. It might seem strange, but we are looking primarily for opticians, obviously, and audiologists, and boomers, the boomer generation. They're soon going on pension, and there's a lot of them. However, the whole education system in most of the Western world within optometrists is that there are more people going on pension than there is actually coming out in the other end newly educated. And we are a company that lives on a growth strategy, so we need more and more on a market that gets smaller and smaller. So basically what we need to do is find a way to attract these people and communicate with them and also to tell them that we're here. And again, that's a whole different journey than putting up an advertise somewhere and waiting for someone to come to you. I'll say 92% of all the hires we do within the professional world is where we need to do something actively to get them in.
Mm-hmm. So what does that look like from a technology perspective then, in terms of what did you have in place when you joined? And what was it? You're laughing already, so I can see.
We were, as everybody else was in 2013, a high technology company within this, with a lot of Excel spreadsheets and small systems that could maintain some of the journey. And obviously one of the problems that we faced, at least, was the one truth on how many vacancies do we have across the 5 countries within the specific ones. We got optometrists that we needed audiologists, but also we are what we call a joint venture partnership model with franchise as well. So basically all our stores are owned by partners. So we also need to take these partners in and obviously either take them in a place where they are mature enough to take over a store, or take them into the company and train them in the way that we want. So yeah, it becomes a different journey, and also a different way of looking at your pipeline. So we needed a system for this, and globally we didn't have anything, and that's when we started the talks around what do we need and what do we want to achieve, and how can we actually make a workflow or a job workflow or whatever that actually fitted into that business model that we have. So it was not us trying to tweak our process into whatever a system can do, but more to have a system that could support the way that we actually work. Because everybody knows that recruiters, they love systems and love putting data in without any output. No, sorry, no, but you need as a recruiter to see that there's any value in putting things into a system, because otherwise you will do all your Excel spreadsheets or whatever you do to maintain your talent pool or whatever it is that you have on the side. So that was the struggle we started out by having.
Yeah, there's so many platforms out there though. So what kind of, for anyone listening who's looking at other platforms or assessing the current solution they have, what are some of the key questions they need to ask? What are some of the, in every day there's a new platform popping up with, you can get lost in all the features and the benefits and the different, new shiny objects that fly your way. What are the key questions that you and the team asked to make sure this was the right, the right solution for you?
Wow, you're unfair. That was in 2015, but I'll try to remember. It's
looking back, would you have done something differently then?
I don't think so. I think primarily we looked at at the. It's so unfair to say, but we looked at some of the larger system that was already in place at that time, and given that myself and a couple of my colleagues from some of the other regions already had worked in either the RPO industry or in agencies, we of course knew some of these systems, but knew what they could do and where they could support us, but also where they might where we probably needed to tweak our model to fit into whatever it was they were. And to be fair, we are a company of these 37,000 plus people working in support offices and in stores, but we are still a small fish in the big sea. And to be fair, one of the things that we decided was, when we talked to some of the bigger companies, it was always, we can try and do this and that. You can be part of our user group and discuss what can come up next. And to be fair, we wanted to be a little bit of a bigger fish in the sea to actually have someone who would work with us on whatever it was that we were trying to achieve by having a system. So that was part of the scope. Someone who actually understood that what we wanted was also important for us, but hopefully also for the solution that they could provide us with. Mm-hmm. And then Agile, again, it's a word that we use a lot. I don't think we used it in 2015. We probably called it something different.
No, probably not.
but it was around, that we need a system where, you don't necessarily go A, B, C, D, E, but whatever you want, whatever is the best way for the recruiter or for exactly that talent pool or that job to be done in, so you could move around without being limited by this is a mandatory field, or this you need to do this, or whatever, all these things that some systems, unfortunately, at least in 2015 had.
Mm-hmm. On LinkedIn, a few people have asked, they'd be interested to understand what are some of the critical data points that you're measuring, Kenneth. What are some of the the critical data points, that you're measuring with the team?
Well, so some of the points is this thing I started out by saying, one truth. How many open positions do we have? We're not a normal recruitment business in the way that we have time to hire or time to fill, because in some cases it doesn't make any sense. We do have some really hard to fill areas that we need to do. For instance, in north of Sweden, for instance, there's a mining town with 30,000 plus miners living there, and they're coming in and out, and it's very, very dark 5 months a year up there, and there's not a lot of opticians that's living in the area to start with, and can be really, really tough to actually persuade people to go up there and work for a couple of years. So it's more about how do we build a talent pool, and then we measure now on something different than we did in 2015. But I think I'll come back to that, because it is around, how do we move people from cold to warm and from warm to hire ready, more than it's around how much time do we use on it. But also, obviously, how can we put events into this communication stream that we're doing and that we're trying to achieve, that we have a communication strategy for each of these groups to actually move them forward in the process, and also make it worthwhile for them to stay in contact with us. Because obviously, if you're an optician somewhere in Sweden or Norway or wherever, most companies that are having an optical chain, they will chase you down, and you will get a lot of offers all the time. And at some point, you don't really want to have that conversation, as we used to call it, the "Will you marry me" conversation. That you start out by calling someone up, and the first question you ask them is, "Will you marry me?" Most people know that if you do that in your private life, it doesn't really work. Or if it does, please email me and give me a tip. But I don't think it does. So it's about building up, that communication around, okay, you might not be ready now, and okay, you might not be.
Nurturing the relationships, staying connected, and keeping them engaged. So when the position does become available, again, you have that talent pool of that you can tap into, as well. So obviously, you using Avature, that was the choice. That's how we were introduced, which was I'm glad we are. Why did you go with Avature? And then talk us through how you're nurturing talent through that pipeline.
Yeah,
talk about some of the ways you're doing that.
Yeah, we implemented a new solution earlier this year, and I think I'll talk you through that, because I think that's more maybe a little bit more needed now. We are trying to we normally looked at Avature in the old-fashioned way that you have a job and the job controls everything. And we try to have a conversation around, maybe we need to do this in a different way. So what we're doing now is we have created a life cycle of a professional. So basically, if you take it, to the 2 outer points that we have in our system is that you are a student, you're going on your journey to become an optometrist. So you're in school. Probably you're 3 or 3.5 years in school, depending on which country we're talking about. So we already want to engage with you at that point. Also because in some of the countries, you're out in the store in practice periods for a longer time. In Denmark is actually the one that's the longest, actually 1.5 years out of the 3.5 years that you're in practice. So we want obviously to engage with them at an early stage to understand, what are they struggling with in school? How can we help them? How can we support them with other courses that we can provide them with that the school is not? So we're actually working with the universities. So we're not stepping on anybody's toes. So we're working with them on, how can we support you in what you're trying to achieve with your students? And then obviously in the other end, in our world, it's becoming, going from being a student to being a newly graduated person to starting working with us to becoming a partner. And you can become a partner internal, as I said, where we have a whole educational stream that we use for those. And obviously you can also be an external and become a partner in one of our stores. So it's the whole life circle around this, that we built. And then we've tried to say, okay, how do we then engage with a potential candidate or candidate that we already have in our database? And we try to divide it up into a couple of areas, that we have obviously people who apply for a job or we connect to a job. We will have what we call a talent pool, which is where we maintain these all the talent that we actually meet out there that actually wants to work with us and we want to work with them. So we try to engage with them in different work streams. And then obviously we also have what we call a long list we needed to create because of all these GDPR regulations that we have in place now in Europe to kind of support the whole journey, but also to make sure that we are GDPR compliant all across the candidate database. Mm-hmm. And just to make it a little bit more simple, we try to do that in one workflow. And it's taking a long time to try and actually build. Obviously, because again, 5 countries, we're not doing things exactly the same. But it was and also there's a lot of key stakeholders that you need from recruitment in there. Some people are working with us that are looking into what we call temps or contingent workforce solution. Some are looking into people that's going to work in our stores. Some are maintaining students, and some again are only looking for partners. So how do you actually spot talent, and how do you actually figure out if this one is actually somebody that we during the whole journey will take further in the process and becoming a partner. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And obviously some place in there also have the discussion with that person on, do you have the money? Because obviously it's not for free, which also makes it a little bit complicated when you are talking about our recruitment process.
Yeah.
So, sorry.
I just think I realized I'm hearing myself in your headset. In the, did you turn the speakers up?
No.
Oh.
But I can turn that down. Maybe it's because I speak louder. Maybe that's why.
Yeah, maybe.
Is that better?
Yeah, it's gone now.
Okay.
I can hear myself a little bit, but I think we're okay.
Sorry for that.
No, that's all right. No problem. It's just it's not you, it's the technology. So what does that look like from a workflow perspective? Because I one of the things that I saw that Specsavers was doing was pretty cool was that sort of the way you use SMS. Because obviously the younger generation, universities, you purely communicate with them through SMS messages, which I thought was very good. It's easy for them, high open rate. But what is the whole system? How have you worked with Avature? Was this already were all of these tools already available in Avature, or have you had to work with them to build this out Because you mentioned,
for instance, the SMS service that we have built in is a service that is enabled in Avature, but it's a third party that actually provides us with the SMS service within Avature. So it's integrated into Avature, but it's not something that Avature is providing. We had a challenge because, again, most of these opticians, they don't read mails, or if they get mails from every single recruitment agency or every single optical chain, they don't really respond to it. And again, we don't want to make long messages anyway, because the young people, they don't read them. And again, they read more SMSs or Facebook than they actually they read mails. So we thought it was a good idea to build this in. And before we did that, everybody was sitting with their phones and texting, and that's really hard. And there's no, some people were sitting, some of our recruiters were sitting afterwards and actually copy pasting that text into the system. So we had the trail of what we've been discussing with the candidates. So for us, it was an important thing that, that we could actually start using an SMS module within the system, because obviously it makes it so much easier. You can just go in on the candidate, send a short message. As soon as the candidate replies, you will get if you put it up, you'll get a warning in the system and in your mailbox saying, the candidate replied on your SMS, and you can have that conversation. Mm-hmm. And you can also use it for mass distribution as well, if you have something. For instance, as we have on some of these student courses that we're having, if it's please remember to come tomorrow for the lesson that we are having on your school, then it's easier, that we can send it out to everybody at the same time that's actually participating in the course.
It's super useful that you have that and that you can integrate it in the system. But in terms of the overall platform within Avature, what feedback have you gotten from the team in terms of the user experience for candidates, for your own recruiters, the hiring managers?
Well, when we changed the system, obviously, when you change a workflow or you change the way that you work in a system, it's rarely that everybody's happy to start with.
Yeah, no one likes change.
And again, it almost comes down to what's in it for me as a recruiter. Why do I need to do this? And I think one of the learnings that we had, although that I think that we communicated a lot, is that you can never ever over communicate on these things. It's not possible. You might think that you've said or written or shown things 10 times, but that doesn't mean that it will be reflected in that way in the groups that are using the system. So, but overall, they're happy to use it. They know why. I think that's the important thing, that they understand. That we didn't do this to report. Obviously, we want to report, but we did this to support the whole communication strategy. That it's so important for us to maintain a relationship with the candidates and simply owning the candidates and the talent pools within the countries. So it's not just a talent pool and you have people in there, you never communicate with them, and then you call them and say, will you marry me? And they don't even know who you are. So again, it's the whole thing about warming people up and making sure that, we don't communicate on things that they don't want, but on either, clinical things, or if they want us to communicate on different areas where if there's a job here I really want to hear about it, or at least have a discussion, we can do those things from within the system.
Mm-hmm. Have you built communities within the platform?
Yeah, we are actually transforming right now. We have something we call Green Club. And I've had that for 4.5 years now, where optometrists can earn CET points, but they can also read a lot about what's happened in the industry. Mm-hmm. But that's it almost lies in the name Green Club, and we are transforming from a club to a more platform environment thing with LinkedIn, Facebook, and all the other communities that these optometrists are using. Obviously also harvesting and sending out newsletters that way, but we are more building And then obviously we are trying to build those communities around, how engaged are the candidates in our database. So, and there's nothing wrong with having what we call cold candidates in the database, as long as we can communicate with them. And it's not a target in itself to move people from cold to warm, or from warm to hire ready. But it is nice as a recruiter to see that whatever you're doing within the system and with the groups that you're working with, that you can actually see that there's a development in, I now have moved X amount of candidates from cold to warm, because then you know within yourself that the strategy that I'm using for my talent pool is working.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. What about, we're making it seem like it was very easy for the implementation. What advice would you give to everyone listening who's going through a similar process? Is there anything you would have done differently? What are some of the to-dos and not to-dos that you've learned going through this process as you continue to go through this process?
I think the first thing is you need to be very, very clear on what you want to achieve. My experience with Avature is that that there's no limit to what you can do, depending on how much money you have and how much time you have as well. But be very, very clear on what is it that you want to achieve. So when you are trying to create a solution, whatever it is, that you understand this is what we have right now, and this is what we want to achieve, and then you can communicate that to Avature or to whoever you're using, to be sure that they understand what it is you're trying to achieve, and not necessarily I want this part and this part and this part, because obviously someone who's building a system will know better what is achievable within the system. So it's more around telling, this is what we want to achieve, and these are some of the critical points for us, and then start a discussion with whoever the provider is on, this is what we can support you with, and this is what we think, so you're also open for new ideas, and maybe if you tweak it this way, you actually get a better product out in the end. I think that was a learning, also to bring people together and start the conversation on, how are you using the system today? What would make it easier or better? And then, obviously in the background, try and steer these people towards the target that you have, because otherwise it can go in very, very wrong directions, or at least in directions you didn't count on. Mm-hmm. And then try and simplify it, which is really, really hard. We spent two people a whole day, and not just 8 hours, but a whole day in a room where we had brown papers on all the walls, and we started to write out the process and try to see how we could squeak it down to whatever we wanted, because simplifying things makes it so much easier for all. And then obviously if you're working across borders, you need to take into consideration, that you're working with different languages as well. We are obviously working at least with the 5 languages. And that means that when you go like, okay, we just need to have these mails in the system or standard things in the system, you need to take into consideration all the time. And then we need to, make that local as well, and make sure it's translated, and also maybe some of the wordings that will work for me as a Danish person, even in English, will not necessarily work in Finland for the way that you normally would approach candidates and so on. So the whole journey around this, I think, is very important.
Mm-hmm. Definitely good learning there. Anything you would have done differently looking back?
Many things. I think I started by saying communicating. I think that sometimes I know we underestimated, the different levels of what people have had. How they use the system to start with, so it's so easy to think, everybody's doing the same. Everybody knows, this is the ground, the foundation of things. And one of the things that we learned from the first implementation was, we trained everybody. We made sure that they had access to Avature's training campus, all these kind of things. And then I think everybody just assumed, okay, when new people come in, they'll probably say to them, oh, by the way, I started by taking Avature training campus, but they didn't. So all the bad things that I was doing I gave to the next person who made some bad decisions as well, and so on and so forth. So it's about, starting that place where you go, okay, this is what we want to achieve, and these are all the things that we need to learn the teams to use. And I think that probably was the pitfall that I fell in. That I made some assumptions that was definitely not correct. So
you're not the only one there. It's something I hear quite often as well, because that's the hard part. Like the actual implementation is almost the easier part. But rolling it out and making sure it's part of the culture, the way you do work every day, and it filters down throughout the business consistently with the same message, that's super difficult. And it comes back to that communication piece that you mentioned earlier as well. You can never over communicate.
No, but what we did actually, what I think is working now, is that we obviously we have these 5 countries, so we named what we call an Avature ambassador for each of the countries. So we have a weekly call, and we're trying to talk about changes, bugs, if there's anything that needs to be fixed in the system. But primarily, what we're going to do for moving forward in the process is obviously focusing only on governance and best practice. And then I think that we also, after struggling with how we train people, found the solution on take a topic of the week. Make it into, a 4-phase learning thing where you learn, you try, you discuss, and you try again. So you get a little video or a little case on the Friday, and a little, this is what we want to achieve. And then you see the video from Avature training campus, or a video that I can record, and then you try it. And then we have a team call within the country teams, because again, they are very different places. And then what we do is we discuss, so what did you accomplish? What have you done well? Is there any obstacles on the way? Anything you didn't understand? And then we try to solve it on these calls, and then move on and see if they can try it and do it the proper way.
So it's an ongoing process, isn't it?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, and every time you bring someone new into the organization, it's going to have to continue as well. As you make changes. What does the before and after look like? Looking back to kind of where you were to where you are today, how has this kind of improved both the organizational, obviously the goals you're trying to achieve, but also for you and the team and your own workflow?
Yeah. So I think one of the big frustration and one of the problems we had, and why we also changed it, was we couldn't find anybody. It was unleashed in a way where everybody could just do their own tags, and that meant you had 10 tags meaning the same thing. But if you were trying to look for people in the system, you couldn't find them. So this way of working has made it easier for people to find people, because you're either in a job or you're in a talent pool. So it's easier, and then it's the tag that actually decides, who are you as a candidate within our pool. And obviously reporting makes it easier as well, because we're talking about the same reporting now. We're talking about, the same terminology, the same way of opening and closing a job, of, how you move people around in the system. Obviously, we're not all there. We're getting there. It's no secret that this Corona thing took its toll on this as well, because obviously in some of the countries we had to close entirely down, and obviously recruitment was some of the first people to actually go on leave, Corona leave in the Nordic countries, because obviously we're not recruiting for anybody in a short period, at least for a couple of months.
Mm-hmm. What about from an ROI perspective? Is this really helped the conversations I'm sure you're having with your leadership team now, in terms of what type of data that they're asking for? Because it's a fairly reasonable size investment, so of course there needs to be a clear ROI. How are you measuring the ROI?
Well, we are measuring on that we have a clear picture of what I call the one truth. That we actually know what we're recruiting for. And at the same time, we also know what kind of events that we are holding. So it's not so much about, how much, time to hire or time to fill, but more around, these events that we are holding. Can we see there is a movement within our talent base that actually makes it worthwhile? So it's more around, if we spend that money on a university event, or graduate event or whatever it is, can we see there is a movement? Can we measure on, how, yeah, they were all happy. Okay, that's fine. But could we actually see any return on investment looking into recruitment and, jobs being filled, or how many graduates did we take out of this year from the school and so on and so forth. Mm-hmm. So that's more the measures that we put in so far.
Yeah. And it's pretty easy for you now to pull those reports, unlike before, where it was all over the place. Not really. You can have an accurate overview of what's actually happening and where you are in each part of those stage of the pipeline.
Yeah, and we actually, when we did this, we also did a cleanup in the database, and we actually ended up by purging over 10,000 candidates across the
purging, getting rid of.
Yeah.
They've just been in there. That's also a big issue for a lot of companies.
Yeah, and that's a funny communication strategy as well, because obviously it started out by being everybody, don't touch my candidates, to actually when they saw, okay, sure. This candidate has been in our database since 2016. We've never been in contact with that person. Don't even know if they work in the industry anymore or anything, and just delete them. So that was also an interesting learning curve, actually, from recruiters going from, I need all my candidates to, let's get rid of them. So I actually know, and now we have a database where we actually know all the people that's in there, they actually want to communicate with us, which is already a better thing. It's easier to ask for, will you marry me then, if they actually want to be in a conversation.
It's similar in sales as well. In all the sales organizations I've worked in, you've got this huge database. And it's like all of the salespeople want to keep hold of all of those leads. It's like, wait a minute, that person hasn't communicated with us in over 10 years. Why are they even still receiving these messages and these emails and communications? You're better off just focusing on that core group that are engaging with your content or engaging with your people and focus on them. But it isn't easy, right? I remember having to have that conversation with my team saying, we're deleting all of this data out, or we're getting rid of even some physical leads on paper at the time. This is a long time ago. And they're like, no, don't take it away. I'm like, you haven't spoken to that person in years. I'm sure you'll be okay.
It's a hard conversation to have, right? Because obviously you feel as a recruiter you need the biggest database that you can have. But it's almost like when you, at least, if you go 10 years back or at least 5-7 years back, and you had conversations with some of these job boards that was telling we got a database of 100,000 candidates. You're going, but how many of them are actually active? Because that's exactly. It's an interesting one. It's an interesting one. I even as a salesperson, I took that approach to my own leads. I had this core set of leads that I kept engaged, build relationships with, understood where they were in different roles, and stay close to them, where there was others that had the mass approach. I used to say to my sales director at the time, I'm like a sniper. So I'm the sniper, and you're like the infantry at the front, just shooting at anyone. And that was my analogy. I'm the sniper. So let me have my small pool of people that I'll keep in contact with, keep engaged, and I'll be very focused on my approach. And the reply was, but Chris, what if you had a bigger pool of people? Wouldn't you get more deals? I'm like, no, you're missing the point. Missing the point, totally.
I still have to explain that to even some of my own team members sometimes. I'm like, be more focused, build relationships. It takes a lot more time, but the outcomes there in the end.
But the benefit of it is that you don't need to do so much sourcing or searching as you've done in the past, because all of a sudden your strategy turns to, how can I maintain the people who actually want to talk to me instead? And I think also that that's one of the big points actually for us as well. That it takes so much time and energy to source and source and source. And it's way better to maintain the database that you have and communicate with them and keep them warm.
Yeah. What's next for you and the team, Kenneth? What's the plans moving forward for the next sort of 6 to 12 months? I know it's hard to say given everything going on, but
it's Wednesday today, right? To be fair, I think right now we just need to make sure that this is working the right way and everybody feels comfortable going forward in this process. And then I think the layer on top of that is this new platform that we're going to do. I can't tell you the name because it's going to be publicized next week. But it is a name where we're going to put a lot of our communication strategy out from our employer brand team, and this is the way that also we're going to harvest some of these people that we want to stay in contact with. And then I think that the next layer is to ensure the communication that comes out on a broader scale from our employer brand team towards these candidates. And then when you go into a specific area, hard to fill area, for instance, and how do I then as a recruiter create my own communication strategy to maintain those people and keep them warm if I know there's a chance, within 3 to 6 months that I'm gonna have a hire in that area, and I know it takes maybe 9 to 10 months to actually find someone who could be interested.
Mm-hmm.
And then we never know what the next thing is here. It could be totally different in 2 weeks. You never know.
Yeah, I was just wondering in terms of if you're not hiring right now, how are you?
We are, but this is actually the good part. We are hiring again, and our stores, although that they are not up and fully running, we've had some really big business weeks the last weeks where we've
everyone coming back.
Aren't
essential workers aren't opticians seen as essential workers?
Yeah.
Essential business, they are, right?
Yeah. So we had a period where we actually in most of the country had to close totally down. So it was only if your glasses broke or you needed new contact lenses or anything that you could go in there. But now we have it under control. We're open in most countries again. Obviously, with all these strict rules that goes in there.
Was it because of the safety equipment that you had to delay it until you have all the right PPE in place?
Yeah.
Masks and screens.
Yeah,
and
screen cleaning. Cleaning is a big thing in the stores right now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Oh, and of course, given the nature of the work you do, you're so close to people. So that adds a whole other.
They have the screens on.
Yeah,
so it's not masks. It's
like a screen. The visor. Yeah. I went to the dentist a few weeks ago, and that was quite a strange experience with someone being this close to you. Right? I was like, and then obviously they had a mask of the visor on, but they're like almost like a hazmat suit. So it was a bit weird. I walked in there, got a suit on with gloves and this thing. I was like, "What are you doing? Surgery? Like, it's just a fill-in."
Is this the right place?
yeah, exactly. I was like, "Where am I right now?" As well, but is it been quite a big shift for you over the last sort of 5 to 10 years for your career? It's been a big, and how have you seen it evolve from when you got into the profession to where we are now? What's the biggest shift that you've seen happen or take place?
Yeah, I actually think that it's two things. I think it's first of all, I think it's technology is a huge part of it. The way that we are using technology today. When I started in recruitment business, it was we didn't even have the internet, or at least not where you advertised. So it's changed a lot, and it's becoming more and more smart. And I think that that the big differentiator is also that people know what they're worth today. They want to be treated as stars, and even when you come out of school, that you do have a set of rules of this is what I want, and a company that follows all these things and takes care of people and governance and all these kind of things. So I think that has changed the whole attitude from having a period where if you were called by a recruiter to being headhunted or searched, you were a little bit oh, you're looking at me, and there was a little bit of a wow factor in that, and that sometimes helped when you were trying to recruit people to a place where everybody was doing it, and all of a sudden it was more annoying than it was actually something that helped you as a recruiter. People were turned off. They didn't want to hear about things because they were constantly being contacted in all kinds of formats, to being more intelligent around, how can you use AI in the process? How can you make sure that, you communicate in a way that people wants to be communicated in, and that can be very, very different. Although
add
it's
value,
the same
though, right, Kenneth? How do you add value to that person before you ask them to marry you?
Exactly.
Yeah.
So that's the attraction part, So again, sometimes when we've internally have talked about this, both most of the team, but also my leaders, the people that I work for, It's been around, my boss he normally goes around and tells me, this is what it looks like. You've got traction, engagement, and you've got recruitment. And most people think that we spend our time on recruitment, but that's might be 10% of what we're doing. The rest is actually the other parts around this, because that's more important. So obviously you need to have the skills as a new employee or candidate to take the job or get the job. But the whole part around how do you actually attract them and engage them in that specific job or this specific company, it feels so much. It takes so much more time, but it also should, because we are probably more aware today of that there are companies that we want to work for and companies that we don't want to work for.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right.
Depending on who you are.
Yeah, and I think I can completely relate to what you're saying. I remember when I was younger and a lot of my friends were in recruitment, and it was in that boom period where if you got a call from a recruiter, you were super excited about it, and it was quite rare to do it, and you felt like valued, and you can end up going for that job interview. And a lot of my friends were making a lot of money in recruitment at that time. This is sort of 10 years ago, and then I saw the shift over a sort of 5-10 year period of. It got to the point where it seemed like everyone's other friend was a recruiter, and you're getting 10, 15 a day, and it became annoying as well. And I saw that shift happen, and then now I think companies are finally realizing you are right. That's just 10% of it. The rest is about engaging them, adding value first, nurturing the talent, and then making sure that there's a bit more of a relationship that's been built there before you ask for the hand in marriage.
It's almost like being a trusted, a trusted advisor for whoever you're talking to, because you obviously also want them to succeed in the job that they're getting. So, it's not just about filling the roles, also making sure that all the different parameters fit together with wherever they're going to work, both on a personal but also obviously on a professional level.
Mm-hmm. Well, Baz, I'm conscious of time, Kenneth, and I want to go to Bas's question. Sorry for a second. He mentioned, do you think there'll be an increase in eye care in the near future with so many people staring at screens all day at home?
Well, we as a company, obviously, we got people working on that side as well. But I think what's happening is that. At least in the countries that we're working in or operating in, is that a lot of eye doctors don't have the time to actually look at their patients. There's so long waiting lists to get to an eye doctor, and a lot of those things that they do could be maintained by the opticians instead. So I think that's also why, if you look at Specsavers, for instance, our stores are filled with technology and things that can help, and it's something that we constantly are talking to governments around, how much can we support and help? Because again, if you have a problem with your eyes, you shouldn't wait 6 to 9 months to get an appointment. Yeah.
Well, I've realized even, Specsavers in the UK, obviously, I think it's the number one in the UK. My wife and I go to Specsavers. It's not, you didn't pay me for the endorsement, but it's definitely good. And whenever it does, there are some, it's not quick to get an appointment, but that's fine. I'm kind of used to it. I don't think I've ever had a next day appointment, but I think that, so there is definitely a shortage there. But I always feel that when I'm taken care of when I use it. But I do worry, like to Bas's point in his question, surely it can't be good for us sitting in front of computers every day, more than we've ever done, right?
As you see, I wear glasses. But I have different glasses. So I have my screen glasses and my normal glasses and stuff like that. And I think, the older you get, the more you need, at least to have that to maintain. And I can see it also in, obviously, some of my friends. That they are starting using glasses when they're sitting in front of the screens, because it is really hard on your eyes if you're sitting there all day.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And before we wrap up, Kenneth, if there's sort of one piece of sort of parting advice you'd give to everyone around sort of going through this journey you've been through and it's still on, what would that be? And then where's the best place for anyone to connect with you if they want to say hello and reach out to you?
Yeah, the best place to connect with me is definitely on LinkedIn. So it's my profile is Kenneth Renneberg on LinkedIn.
We'll tag it in.
Yeah. Can you ask the last question, the first question again?
In terms of based on a conversation we've had and your journey so far at Specsavers and implementing Avature or any system of this nature or platform, what would your advice be to give to anyone who's going through a similar transformation or journey at the moment?
Yeah, I think the best advice is to, and I think I said it before as well, is to actually go in and have a real proper discussion within your team or company or whatever group that is that are going to make the decision on what is it actually that we want to achieve by having a system. Because again, there are a lot of systems out there, and I think you can easily buy something that's too expensive and where there's a lot of things you don't use, or the other way around where you find out that the solution that you bought is not going to support you in the way that you want to work in the future. And again, the best thing is to go, we want a system that supports the way that we work and not the other way around, because that doesn't really work in 2020, if you ask me.
I love it. Well, look, Kenneth, appreciate you taking the time out to join us. I appreciate the insights. I'm sure you're probably going to get a lot of messages now on LinkedIn for some people asking for some more advice. For everyone on LinkedIn, thank you for joining us. I appreciate you taking the time out. If you're new to the podcast, please like, comment, and share so that others can benefit from the great knowledge and experience. Also, head over to hrleaders.com/subscribe, and you can subscribe by your favorite platform. Apart from that, enjoy the rest of your days, and we look forward to seeing you all again tomorrow. Bye for now, Kenneth. I'll see you soon.
Bye. Take care.
Bye.